Surviving 100 days in hardcore Minecraft might not sound like a lot, but in hardcore, you only get one life. Just one small mistake can cost you your entire world. For me, this added risk makes everything I achieve feel more significant. And it's why I've decided to start a series of my own. Before getting started, I had 4 main goals I wanted to complete on my way to day 100. I wanted to defeat the Ender Dragon, get full netherite gear, defeat the Wither, and bring home a beacon. In standard fashion, the first thing I needed was wood. Lucky for me, I spawned in a tree, and I instantly spotted a shipwreck along the beach. I got some wood, and decided to loot the shipwreck before making any tools. In the shipwreck, I found iron, lapis, a coal helmet, and some nasty looking soup. Using the iron, I made myself some iron gear, skipping wood and stone tools completely. I grabbed some more wood and some sugarcane, and climbed a tree to get a better view of my surroundings. Jumping down, I noticed there was some lapis in the water, so I mined it, thought about following the shiny light, and decided that I didn't want to drown. Back on the surface, I introduced myself to the local wildlife and continued my journey inland. At the top of a hill, I spotted a few pumpkins, collected them, and high-fived a cow. I ended up next to a river and decided it would be easier to make a boat. I was starting to get hungry, so I cooked some food and thought about eating the nasty soup I found. To make things interesting, I decided I would save it and eat it on day 100. During my trip, I made a quick stop to mine some coal, then continued sailing. The sun was already setting, so I was thinking about stopping for the night when I turned around and saw a village, the perfect place to start out. I looted the chests, locked the villagers inside their houses for their own safety, and went to sleep. Except I didn't. In this episode, I'm not going to be sleeping at all, because I need as much time as possible to complete all my goals. I went back outside, high-fived some more cows, and got ambushed. Then I stole this nitwit's potatoes and killed my first zombie. I found some armor stands with some iron armor and completely forgot how armor stands work. Luckily, this creeper helped me out with one of them, and I remembered that I could use my hands for more than swinging an axe. With half a set of iron armor, I made my way over to an empty house and claimed it as my own. I emptied my inventory into a chest, cooked some food, and from what I could hear going on outside, I was probably going to need it. I stepped outside and immediately got attacked by a baby. Lucky for me, most of the zombies were stuck. I'm not sure what these things are supposed to be, but they're great for trapping mobs. I spent the rest of the night trying to get a zombie for my future iron farm, but not a single one would pick up an item. On day 1, I wasted no time and began digging out a room for my iron farm. I went back up to the surface to grab some beds and noticed an azalea tree right next to the village. I decided to come back and explore this later. I continued working on the farm, and definitely didn't refer to a tutorial or anything. My iron pick broke while making the farm, so I upgraded it to stone. Wait, what? That night, I released the villagers, and to my surprise, they actually made their way down to the farm on their own. I was so happy that I jumped down the hole, and yeah, this was way too close. I sealed the villagers into their new home, then went back up to the surface to get a zombie for the farm. Before I could, I was surrounded by 3 creepers and a skeleton. This skeleton was insane. He tried using the creepers as a weapon, but I was saved by my shield. Realizing his mistake, he tried to escape in my boat, but I was too quick for him. I started a zombie train, and finally got a zombie to pick up an item. He fell right into my trap, and I could already hear the iron farm working. But in order to finish this farm, I was going to need some lava. On day 2, I made a field for a wheat farm, and collected a bunch of seeds. 2, to be exact. And I realized I was going to have to find a place with more grass if I wanted to finish this farm. But first, I needed to finish my iron farm. After a little exploring, I found a plains biome and thought it might have lava. I stumbled across a cave that had a light coming from the inside, got excited, and realized it was just lichen. I decided to go a little deeper and actually found lava. When I got home, I placed the lava in the iron farm and found 2 pirates having a staring contest. I saved them from a zombie and locked them into a house where they can continue in safety. As the night was ending, I built a collection system for the iron farm and made some boots and pants to complete my first set of iron armor. Day 3, I went back to the plains biome and collected a bunch of seeds, this time more than 2. As the sun was setting, I noticed a village in the distance and decided to pay it a visit. I made an iron hoe and borrowed some of their hay. They had plenty, so I didn't think they would mind. During this, I noticed another village not too far away. I was high-fiving some cows, and this skeleton didn't like it. I blocked his next shot and it still hurt me somehow. I turned around and noticed a creeper behind me. It was a perfect opportunity to get a music disc, so that's exactly what I did. After that, I found one of SpaceX's old landing sites, grabbed some emeralds, and didn't panic at all on my way down this mountain. I visited the local library, found a free brewing stand, and visited a second library because knowledge is power. Day 4, I made it back to my base, planted the seeds, and realized I couldn't count. Then I built a sheep pen because I was going to turn wool into diamonds. I spent the rest of the day organizing my items and made a new chest for my most prized possessions. I wanted to save these items to remind me of my humble beginnings once I was rich and famous. That night, I experienced my first phantoms and fought bravely for a few seconds before cowering under this tree and running back into my house. Knowing I was going to have to get used to phantoms if I wasn't going to sleep, I made a new axe and went back outside to face the phantoms. I started off day 5 by making 2 new fields, one for carrots and another for potatoes. Then I found a few sheep and showed them the place they'd be staying for the next 80 days. I grabbed a few more sheep and bred them. The more sheep I could get, the faster I'd get diamonds. For the rest of the day and night, I faced my fear of the dark by placing as many torches as I possibly could. On day 6, I spent an embarrassingly long time working on this entrance to my mine. Needless to say, I'm not the best builder, but at least I had a place to get some stone. Then, I spent the next 24 hours in-game role-playing as a lumberjack. In all seriousness, I wanted to clear out an area for future builds, and this had the added benefit of taking away more areas mobs could hide. I actually ended up with a decent amount of wood at the end. For what was left of day 7, I planted some oak saplings and got the materials I would need for my next project. On day 8, it was time to build a wall. Before I could let the villagers out of their houses, I needed a way to protect them. I placed a rough outline of where I wanted the wall to be, and then ran into a problem. If I wanted this place to look good, the land separating the 2 rivers needed to go. So I added it to my to-do list and continued building the wall. And if this isn't the most beautiful build... okay, yeah, this is gonna need rebuilt later, but it'll work for now. At night, I began the 2-day project of uniting these 2 rivers. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring myself to destroy the Nitwit's house. I had already stole his life savings and locked him in my... Oh wait. No, it's gone. On day 11, the terraforming was complete, and I was actually quite happy with the result. The bottom of the river was very natural looking, and thanks to all that digging, I'm no longer dirt poor. I spent the entire night adding the back layer to my wall. And I've gotta say, I think it's looking less ugly than before, so mission successful? On day 12, I released the villagers from their homes. I also placed as many beds as I could fit in each of their houses. Rumor has it that half of the village population mysteriously disappeared into a hole in the ground and was never seen again, so I had some repopulating to do. The next day, 2 of the villagers retired from their day jobs and became farming partners. Wanting to show my support, I gave them some of the Nitwit's potatoes and they loved them. A lot. Then I found a cat in the village and was admiring its beauty when come on man, personal space. I made a fishing rod so I could get fish to feed the cat, but they didn't seem interested. so I jumped into the water and did some convincing. I'm really good with animals, so all I had to do to befriend it was chase it through the forest and cut off its only path of escape. I gave my new BFF the task of guarding the gaping hole in my wall, and now my defenses were impenetrable. I also fought my first Enderman. He may have had the reach advantage, but I had the low ground. Day 14, I decided to destroy this entire forest. Looking back, I'm not exactly sure why I did this. I still had plenty of wood and I didn't need oak for anything, but hey, at least I replanted most of them. I guess I couldn't just leave the trees alone. That night, while pondering if lava is wet, I grabbed 10 buckets of it. On my way home, I found this cute bunny. Surrounded by mobs, I thought it would be the perfect time to test out a new weapon I'd been developing. But it clearly wasn't ready yet, so I made the brave decision to run away. I started off day 15 by using the lava I collected to make my first nether portal. It was still pretty early for a nether trip, but I needed the blaze rods for potions if I was going to become rich. As I was finishing my fastest portal ever, I heard some weird sounds coming from one of the houses. But I'm sure they're fine. Needing a piece of flint, I grabbed my only gravel and managed to get it on the first try. Before entering the nether, I made a new set of iron armor from the ingots the golems gifted me. I hung up the old set and baked myself some pies for the journey. Before entering the portal, I traded my life savings for some arrows, and I was ready to go. Entering the nether for the first time, I was greeted by a ghast who instantly tried to kill me. I couldn't believe I spawned right next to a fortress. Wasting no time at all, I entered the fortress, killed my first blaze, and felt a warm tingly sensation that turned out to be fire. I healed my burns with bread, and turned around to notice 2 blaze spawners back to back. This would be perfect for a blaze farm if I ever needed one. I declined the tall skeleton's request to give me a hug, and proceeded to clear out the fortress. I found some nether warts, extinguished this guy who was on fire, and nearly ended up taking a very warm bath. In the fortress, I found my first diamonds, a saddle, and some horse armor. I found some more skeletons that were too tall for their own good, and wasn't at all jump scared by this ghast. I taught him a quick lesson and made my way over to the blaze spawners. Fighting blaze in iron gear is very risky, but it was something I had to do in order to make potions. Several 4th degree burns and an iron axe later, I had gathered 20 blaze rods and decided it would be enough to not have to visit my fiery friends again, or at least until I had better gear. I gathered some bone blocks, soul sand, and spent the rest of day 16, all of day 17, and most of day 18 mining gold. Mining is boring, so I'll save you the trouble. When I got back from the nether, I combined all the golden nuggets into ingots, and used the brewing sand I borrowed to make potions of weakness. Using the gold, I made 8 golden apples. At night, I captured a zombie so that I could introduce him to my villagers, but it turns out he never learned to swim, so I ended his suffering. On day 19, I began making an exquisite trading hall where I could conduct my business. Then, I turned wheat into sheep and found a new zombie friend for my villagers. As I was giving him a tour, an angry baby found a gap in my defenses. Using my quick reaction time, I trapped him in a boat, but the baby's twin brother had arrived and showed off some juke moves that would make Dante Hall blush. With my pride and my ankles broken, I tried to hide in one of the houses, but this little guy was relentless. I had no choice but to hold my ground. After putting the babies down for a nap, I returned to my trading hall. Using what I had learned from these things, I made one of my own at the back of the trading hall to hold my new zombie. Now, my trading hall is complete, but I decided to wait until more of the baby villagers grew up to start using it. I mean, come on, what do you think this is? Day 21, I built my first tower for the village. I wanted to make the roof out of acacia wood, but I didn't have any, so I didn't build the roof. The tower was looking decent, better than the wall at least, but I'll be upgrading it with the rest of the wall later on. That night, I was scarred for life. Now that the villagers had grown up, I selected 3 lucky gentlemen and proposed a deal. Once they were settled in their new offices, I locked in their trades and introduced them to their new friend. Except he didn't trust them yet, because he couldn't see their faces. So, on day 23, I raised the roof and rejoiced at the sounds of new friendships being made. After giving them their first cure, I met some friendly sea creatures and dyed some of the sheep for future sales. Once the villagers were cured, I organized another meeting with their friend and repeated the process. After that, I noticed my iron farm was no longer working. I thought it was this guy's fault, and it turns out that new weapon I've been developing works after all. I organized the final meeting, but I accidentally locked eyes with the zombie and he came out to see me. Iron Man showed up to save the day, and this made me very happy. Because I interrupted the meeting, only 2 of the villagers were converted. I tried to fix it by opening the trapdoor, but it opened the opposite way I wanted it to and chaos ensued. I went back up to the surface, hoping the problem would fix itself, but when I tried to go back down, another escaped. Luckily, Iron Man was still there to save the day, and this made me even happier. Day 24, I tried to salvage what I could from the previous night's disaster. I gave the surviving villagers their final cure and witnessed some children playing Follow the Leader. Ready to work on my business, I went back to the trading hall and noticed one of the children had snuck in somehow. I let him out, blocked off all entrances, and was greeted by another child. Now, completely convinced I was witnessing some sort of black magic, I let this child out as well. I made my first trades and had a full stack of emeralds within seconds. Then I noticed more villagers had made their way into the trading hall, and realized the children weren't evil wizards after all. Around midnight, I woke up this farmer because I wanted a snack, and after a little convincing, I now had an unlimited supply of my favorite food. On day 25, I traded with a weaponsmith who sold me a pretty decent enchanted sword, and before I knew it, I had access to my first enchanted diamond tools. The next day, I made a makeshift system to collect saplings, and proceeded to test out my new axe. Then I made some deals with my first armorer, who would turn out to be very important later on. That night, I was visited by the Invisible Man, and I used a boat to rob him peacefully. Then I returned to the Nether and started a mine. Day 27 consisted of bed mining, and some more bed mining. It was my first time trying this method, and I'll never be going back to chunk border mining. Although it was a little early to be looking for cinnamon rolls, I was mainly interested in gold for more golden apples, and I thought I could knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. I returned home on day 28, pockets filled with gold. Okay, not really, the haul was rather disappointing, but what wasn't disappointing was that my new armorer friend could now sell me diamond armor. Just as the night was coming to an end, I managed to get a new zombie to replace the one Iron Man killed. As the sun rose on day 29, we went on a pleasant boat ride together. Afraid that Iron Man wouldn't like my new friend, I showed him the tower I built, and he jumped up and down with glee. With Iron Man distracted, I showed my new friend his home. Then I turned 2 more lucky gentlemen into shepherds and unlocked the final trades for full diamond armor. I bought boots, pants, and a helmet, but I couldn't afford the chestplate yet. That night, I began moving the iron farm. It turned out that the surface golems weren't the issue at all. It was just too close to the other villagers. This time, I had the farm memorized, and by morning, it was almost finished. I just needed the zombie and some volunteers. On day 30, I did some trading, completed my first set of diamond armor, and captured another zombie for the new iron farm. Also, in case you guys are wondering, I'm using the data pack More Mob Heads, which gives all mobs a chance to drop their heads. This is how these guys have phantom heads on. Day 31, I got my first librarian villager, and after just 2 in-game hours of refreshing trades, I already had access to mending books. During the night, I gathered all the brave volunteers and moved them to the iron farm. As I was placing the lava, I ended up in a pretty awkward situation. But again, my 2 brain cells came in clutch. After placing the water, I now had a fully functioning iron farm again, and I hoped it would stay that way. The next day, I got a toolsmith and gained access to diamond hoes and diamond shovels. Iron Man 2 had arrived to free Iron Man, but I wasn't going to have it. I was actually really worried I'd hit one on accident while fighting phantoms, and I wasn't going to lose my hardcore world to a golem. With tying things to fence posts on my mind, I decided to go tame a horse. But since it was night, I got a little distracted along the way. After dealing with the Enderman, I got back in my boat, but I was interrupted again. This time by a drowned with a trident. I dealt with him and encountered another one. To my surprise, this one actually dropped his trident, and it had really good durability as well. I couldn't find my boat, but I realized that the drown must have destroyed it. So I continued on foot. I found another cute bunny, made it to the plains biome, and found the perfect horse. In no time, I had him tamed and saddled, and decided to name him Teddy. I tested out his speed and vertical jump, gave him some armor, and headed home. That evening, I finally got my first diamond pickaxe from the toolsmith and now had access to unlimited diamond tools. That night, I wanted another midnight snack and had cinnamon rolls on my mind. I didn't stop until I had enough to coat all my gear with it, which took over 2 days, so enjoy this time lapse. With a grand total of 44 cinnamon rolls, I now had the perfect amount I would need and went back home. At home, I wanted to get better enchantments on my gear before upgrading it to netherite. My mending villager also had Feather Falling 3 books, so I instantly bought 2 and added them to my boots along with mending. This would give me a lot more leeway for future mistakes, which I was sure there would be a lot of. On day 37, I replaced one of the new shepherds so I'd have a better balance of trades for each color of wool. Then I added a new librarian, and the first trade he had was for power 5, which I couldn't pass up. I started making a basement where I could place my enchantment table when the impossible happened. My defenses were penetrated from above. My wall had failed me yet again. I took a peek outside and decided I wasn't interested in whatever these ladies were selling. But they had already noticed me, so I had to confront them. They drank some potions and disappeared from my land. I returned to the basement and continued digging like the mole rat I am. I even added some oak slabs to make it look pretty. Then I added the enchantment table, a chest, and an anvil. On day 38, my luck with the librarians continued. I got a looting 3 trade without any refreshing. I was picky with the next librarian though, because I desperately needed fortune. I destroyed his workplace over and over, even passing up a sharpness 5 trade, but he eventually gave me what I wanted. Needing more emeralds for these books, I added a high-tech force field around some of the villagers so that the zombie would spend more time getting to know my new shepherds. He couldn't get close enough to give them hugs, so I let them out of their offices to make things easier. I returned to the meeting with a cure and shared it with my friends. I started off day 39 by enchanting a diamond sword and got quite lucky. I usually go for sharpness on my swords, but I kept this one anyways. After that, I learned that my friends didn't like their new sunroof very much, so I took it down. I brought them another cure to make up for it, and then worked on a problem with my sheep. You see, most of the sheep were light gray, but none of my shepherds liked that color, so they had to die. Be dyed. I returned to my friends, gave them the final cure, and disabled the force field protecting the other villagers. It was time to start taking security more seriously. Another attack from the sky would be a huge setback if it hurt my cured shepherds, so I added another layer to my defenses. It was ugly, but it was efficient. I then performed the world's cleanest water bucket and did some trading. Trading each wool for an emerald, I could get up to 2 stacks of emeralds in just a few seconds. With my newfound wealth, I wanted to buy some more golden carrots, but my best farmer was out of commission, so I found a new one. I returned to my basement to do some enchanting. I got a fire protection book and combined 2 pickaxes into the perfect pick, and right away used my cinnamon rolls to upgrade it. With my new fortune pick, I spent the whole night mining the gold I uncovered while bed mining. On day 41, I returned to the surface with over 100 ingots, which would be more than enough to make all the netherite ingots. Then I got a new librarian, and after a couple refreshes,
10 years later,
had access to efficiency 5. I added looting 3 to a new sword I enchanted, and went to the nether in hopes of getting all the ender pearls I would need for the dragon. I tested out my new bow and sword, and even found 2 endermen in the Soul Sand Valley. It was a good start, but I needed more pearls. Next, I tried trading with some pig people, found another enderman, and did some more trading. But after a full day of giving them every piece of gold I could find, I didn't get any pearls in return. So I said goodbye and made my way back to the fortress. At this point, I figured my best option would be to mine through this wall and hope to find a warped forest on the other side. It didn't work, but it led me to another waste biome where I found the pig people's home. Now, I'll be honest, I don't have any experience raiding bastions, so bear with me. All I knew was that there was supposed to be some gold and loot at the bottom. I quietly made my way into the bastion by smashing through the wall, and began picking off every brute I could find. I pillared up to the top, didn't see anything shiny, and went back down. On the way, this brute was so scared of me that he jumped off the bridge and somehow lived. I fixed that, which upset his brother, and I found out how ridiculously hard these guys hit. One more hit there and I probably would have died. I made a new shield, grabbed 2 gold blocks, and decided that I would get whatever was at the bottom and make my escape. I helped another pig who wanted to die, and finally arrived at the bottom of the bastion where I was greeted by some magma cubes. One almost chest bumped me into the lava, so I blocked myself off, retook the high ground, and killed the last brute. Other than the cinnamon rolls and gold blocks, the loot was pretty bad, but I now had enough to trade for all the pearls I would need. I popped a fire res potion and got out of there. Once I got back, I killed another enderman, owned the skeleton, and found some more pig people to trade with. I traded for most of day 44. Little did they know I was selling them their own gold. Once I had enough pearls, I decided what was worth taking home and went back to the portal. For the rest of the night, I organized my chests, made some slow falling potions, and put mending on the rest of my armor. Once I had everything I needed, it was time to find the stronghold. I threw my first eye, broke it, and hopped on Teddy. I found some gold, burned my feet, and met some skeletons who were horrible at their job. After passing the villages I found earlier on, things got messy. To make a long story short, the next 2 days went something like this. Until I finally dug down and found it. While searching for the portal room, I found some diamond horse armor, extra pearls, and some stairs that led me right to it. I placed the eyes of my enemies into the frame, unlocking a portal into a new dimension. Oh, that's kinda dark. I made a new shield and hopped into the portal. So I think this is where I'm supposed to edit out all the shots I missed to make myself look better, but I didn't miss any. So here's the raw and totally unedited footage. After collecting all the XP, the dragon head, and the egg, I went home. Then realized I probably should have set my spawn at the stronghold because now I had to go all the way back to get Teddy. It was a long walk, but when I finally got there, I gave Teddy the diamond armor I found at the stronghold, and we went back home. Day 49, I bought a fresh set of armor and tools from the villagers. I used all the XP from the dragon to enchant and combine the enchantments on the new gear. Once I was happy, I upgraded my silk pickaxe, axe, shovels, and most importantly, my hoe to netherite. I started upgrading my armor, but realized I didn't have enough experience to finish the boots. On day 50, I got all the XP I needed by trading, and combined the boots, upgraded them, and covered myself in cinnamon rolls. I got some more levels, made a Smite 5 sword, and used the final netherite ingot to upgrade it. I got some more levels and added unbreaking to my bow, and fire protection to my chestplate. I knew I'd be fighting a lot of blaze in the future, so this seemed like a good investment. My hoe was looking dull, so I gave it a quick enchant. And there we have it, 2 of my major goals already complete. I went through my gear nice and slow here in case you wanted the details. Not too shabby for 50 days, and all it took was some wool. On day 51, I maxed out my first librarian, and bought 2 name tags. One for Teddy, and another for the cat that you probably forgot about by now. I named her Lily, and after, went to the Nether to break some rules. You see, the Nether is filled with lots of stuff trying to kill me. But it's really useful for traveling, so I decided to go where nothing could hurt me, above the bedrock. Getting up there was much easier than making a way down. First, I tried to use the power of beds to make a hole down, but it didn't work, the first time, the second time, or the third. I concluded that this method must be outdated, so I turned to plan B and went back to the overworld to cry myself to sleep. But I can't sleep, so I got everything for a method that I knew would work. Day 52, I used a more reliable method and made a hole first try. Now, all I had to do was remove this, place the ladders I had prepared, and voila! Using a calculator I borrowed from NASA, I did some insane calculations and figured out I needed to build my next portal right here. Perfect, my new man cave. No, not really. I broke it down, dug straight down because I'm indestructible now, was reminded that I'm not indestructible now, and put it here. While I was there, I decided to loot the rest of the stronghold and evicted any of the inhabitants I found. I found some crazy loot, like look at this book and all these cobwebs. I was so happy that I went home early. With plans to go searching for my first elytra soon, I wanted to get as much gunpowder for rockets that I could. So I went back to the plains biome to see if anyone there had any. I tested out my new sword and man, I love Smite now. When I got back home, I realized I didn't plant any sugarcane yet. So I planted some and embarked on a long journey across the river to get more. Then I spotted a shipwreck and found some other green stuff I didn't have yet, so I took it. On the way home, I met some new friends and showed them my new favorite sword. At home, I planted all the sugarcane I had found. On day 55, I was getting tired of waiting for the sugarcane to grow. Then I remembered the stronghold library still had paper, so I went back to get it. I now had everything I needed for some end busting, so I hopped into the portal. I built some stairs up to the gateway and proceeded to baby-proof it. Then I went a step further and with the help of a trapdoor, crawled in like the baby I am. And if you weren't thinking I used a god seed by now, you probably are now. Anyways, I pillared up halfway to the ship and decided to show off my ender pearl skills. Flawless. In the ship, I found some potions, killed Oscar the Grouch's grandma, looted the chests, and got my first elytra, which I instantly put mending on. For the rest of the day and most of day 56, I did a lot of this, and a lot more of this. Once the city was cleared out, I was thinking about going home, but I only had 28 shulker shells so far, and I really didn't want to come back here anytime soon, so I decided to keep going. I found another end city just a few hundred blocks away, and repeated everything I had done for the last 20 minutes over again, so there went the rest of day 56 and most of day 57. Satisfied with the 53 shulker shells I had gotten, I found another end gate and this time was brave enough to throw a pearl. I hate doing this because one time I missed and was teleported into the void, but I didn't feel like building stairs. The pearl worked perfectly and I finally went home. Happy to be back in the overworld, I got 2 new librarians and refreshed their trades. The first one gave me Unbreaking 2 and I decided to keep it. Since I had unlimited emeralds, I could just combine them into Unbreaking 3 books. The second had Silk Touch, which is nice to have, so I locked it in. Using my new trades, I added Unbreaking to my first elytra and then maxed out my spare. Having an elytra meant I would lose inventory space due to the rockets and chestplate I would carry, so I made a backpack for extra space, filling it with everything that I thought might be useful to have with me. That night, I flew back to the plains and... Back at home, I turned all the gunpowder into more rockets and put the extras in my backpack. Then I kidnapped a cartographer, so I had access to maps. I bought an ocean map and a mansion map that I could use later on. I thought it would be nice to have a map of my village, so I did one lap, made a map, and that was that.
I'll get you, and I'll look like a bloody accident.
Day 60, I was feeling adventurous. I used the map to pinpoint exactly where the woodland mansion was. By my calculations, I guessed it was somewhere this way. On the way, I turned this chicken into a book so I could write down coordinates of every cool place I found. Sure, I could have just taken screenshots, but then I would have needed to think of a different excuse to kill this chicken. During the journey, I found a frozen ocean, a big mushroom island, this adorable puppy, a giant taiga, and this snowy mountain that I thought looked cool. I arrived at the mansion at sunset and my calculations had been correct. It was indeed somewhere in that direction. I was going to go through the window, but that's loud, so I broke through the wall into what looked like a boxing ring. I fixed the wall, leaving it exactly how I found it, and skipped down the hall. The third floor was quiet. Too quiet. So I passed a lovely gentleman on the way down the stairs, and then out of nowhere, an evoker appeared. I charged it, taking it out, but learned that the Vexes were the real threat, and had no choice but to run. I climbed up a ladder, healed myself, and picked them off one by one. I was taking a music disc from the chest when another Vex arrived and I don't know what happened to it. In the chaos, I forgot to grab the totem from the hallway. You know, like the whole reason I came here. I continued exploring, killing everything in my path, called on my friend Iron Man to help, and couldn't find any other evokers. I spent the whole night and half of day 61 running around in circles before realizing I had already found everything this place had to offer. Not wanting to end the journey on a disappointing note, over the next 3 days I made Dora proud and explored so much more of my world. In my travels, I found Uranus, an ocean monument, my spawn, another monument, a jungle, this cool island, an ice spikes biome, some buried treasure, a savanna, a badlands biome, a desert with a desert temple, a pillager outpost, a tiny coral reef, a not so tiny coral reef, and the smallest swamp I've ever seen. At this point, I had found so many unique biomes, and wrote them all down in my book so I could come back to them later. I made it home late at night on day 63, and being almost 2/3 of the way to day 100, I still needed to defeat the Wither and bring home a beacon to achieve my goals. However, the last time I worked on anything in this village, it was the tower I finished on day 21 that still didn't even have a roof. Needless to say, it was time to give this place a long overdue makeover. Day 64, I moved the whole trading hall down a block, so now it looked like this instead of this. Then I tricked the rest of the villagers into believing the world was ending, and locked them in a bunker where they'd be out of my way. I also named the blaze rod I used to kill the ender dragon because I almost turned it into a brewing stand. With that sorted, I began destroying everything I had built so far. Let's just say that I had a new vision for this place and it didn't include this, as flawless as it was. On day 66, I finally had everything I needed to build version 2 of my wall. The main part of the wall was finished on day 66, and I was much happier with this version than the last. It looked way more natural, and it better fit the style that I was going for. Then, it was time to destroy everything the villagers owned. I wanted to start with a clean slate and add my own buildings here, so the houses and pathways needed to go. All except mine, of course. Day 69 consisted of a lot of wood, as it should, at least until I noticed a parade. I tried to join in, but they were all gone before I got the chance. At this point, I noticed the villagers in the iron farm were being awfully quiet for some reason. So I decided to check on them, and turns out there was no one to check on. I ran through every possible way that this could have happened and realized I forgot one step. So yeah, I guess a zombie or two spawned down here, and that's okay because I love transporting villagers. So much that I chose to save it for another day and fix the farm later. Then I went back into my mine for the first time since building it to get some stone and andesite for my builds. I found a huge vein of andesite and a cave that led me here. Ta-da! This was my first time capturing an axolotl and it was flawless. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it once I caught it, but that was really the only thing I came down here for, so I went back up to mine. Day 70, I emerged from my mine, and because I'm so caring, I gave the axolotl its freedom back. I put it in the river and never saw it again. Now that I had all the materials, it was time to get back to building, starting with the new tower designs. All 5 towers were completed in 2 days. I was on a roll and went straight to building the main gate. I wanted to keep things simple here and also used a trick with ladders and carpets. If you didn't know already, mobs can't pathfind over ladders with carpets on top, which allows for open mob-proof doors like this one. Now, you might be wondering why I would build a main gate that leads directly to a river. I wanted to have a bridge across somewhere along the river and this seemed like the perfect spot. Now, at this point I was trying to think of a joke about my unfinished bridge, but it's too hard to get across. I went for a simple wooden design and I think it suits this place well. Now this place was starting to come together, but the wall could use some more detail, so it was time to put that stone and andesite to good use. And in just 9 days, I had transformed this into this. While I had made a lot of progress, I couldn't end the first 100 days without adding any buildings, so I got straight to work on the most important one of them all, the town hall. And why not make it even more difficult by building it diagonally? I started with a stone foundation and built the frame of the tower that would later hold the bell. This was by far the most time-consuming build so far, so I've condensed it down into a time-lapse of day 75 through 82. On day 82, the town hall was complete. I really like this style, and it's going to serve as a reference for the rest of the builds in this village. I released the villagers from their bunker and moved their beds to the upstairs of the town hall, since I didn't have any other plans for that space yet. Then I made a pathway with a mix of coarse dirt, dirt paths, and granite. I used bone meal to add some more greenery around the outside of the wall to make up for what I had destroyed, and didn't give this spider the time of day. Out of curiosity, I updated the maps and was reminded that I forgot to move the lightning rod. I nailed the landing and moved it to the top of the bell tower. On day 83, I wanted to focus on my moneymakers here, because being crammed in this tiny pen since day 5 had left them in a bad mood. Oh my god. I built a larger pen, moved the sheep inside, and began working on the barn. It was easy to build and only took a little more than a day. On day 85, I removed the map and the rest of the crops. On day 86, I decided I could no longer tolerate cramming everything I owned into a tiny villager house, so I began working on a storage room under the town hall. I went for a damp and mossy style room, and used barrels for most of the storage. It only took a day to build, but that was the easy part. Before sorting out my items, there were a few imposters hiding amongst the sheep. I couldn't have that, so I brought out Old Reliable. I was very careful to make sure not a single sheep was hurt in the process. Also, I'm sure you've all noticed the floating fence post left over from the map by now. If not, I'm sorry, you can't unsee it now. I have no idea how I didn't notice it with how many times I walked past it, but it's gonna be there for a while. With the imposters taken care of, I began moving all my belongings into my new storage. Even taking 4 shulkers of items over at a time, this still took 3 days, but it was 100% worth it in the end. The storage was finally organized by day 90. With only 10 days left, I still needed to defeat the Wither and get a full beacon to complete my goals. I made some golden apples to carry with me in case things got sketchy, and went to the Nether fortress. I needed Wither skulls and I needed them fast. Okay, this wasn't gonna work, so I flew to the Soul Sand Valley in hopes of finding a new fortress, and eventually I did. With my Smite 5 sword and fire protection chestplate, killing these Wither skellies and Blaze was a breeze. I made it home on day 92 and it was time to get trading. With my iron farm still broken, my only chance at a full beacon was getting emeralds by trading. For the next 5 days, all I did was trade wool for emeralds during the day and work on other stuff during the night like killing squids for ink to trade for even more emeralds. On the night of day 94, night of day, I decided to fix the iron farm. I gathered all 3 villagers and was ready to move them in when one's head fell off. It was truly a tragedy, but one I didn't have time for. So I got the other 2 into the farm and found a replacement for the 3rd. Unfortunately, it was one of my master farmers, but I didn't have time to be picky. Sealing the villagers in, I was about to fix the killing chamber when this happened. If I didn't have my chestplate equipped, so I wouldn't have survived this. I still have no idea why the golem attacked me. It had just spawned. I guess one of the villagers must have ratted me out for decapitating their friend. I finished the farm and got out of there. Then it was back to shearing and trading. This is the moment I finally noticed the fence. I was really confused because it had been over 10 days in game, and several in real life hours since I removed the map, so I had no idea where it came from. Day 96, all I did was trade, and on day 97, I finally had enough emerald blocks for my beacon. On day 98, I had some extra time to explore the lush cave under the azalea tree I found earlier on. I found a mine shaft on the way down, but there was no time for that, so I kept going until I found it. The lush cave I had been waiting to explore. And yeah, quite underwhelming. Nowhere near as nice as the one I found in my mine, so I grabbed the diamonds I found and flew out. After a drive-by milking, I had everything I needed for the wither fight, so I hopped on Teddy and rode over to the Badlands portal. That's right, no underground tunnels or end portal cheese here. I was fighting the wither fair and square on the surface. Starting the fight with other mobs around sounded like a death wish, so I killed the rest of the night by killing everything in sight.
I will end you!
With the sun out and all the mobs dead, it was go time. This was the only thing left between me and completing all of the goals I had set. The fight was easier than expected, but it was my first time fighting the wither legitimately, so I didn't want to be underprepared. With the wither defeated, there was only one goal left to complete. I raced home, placed all the blocks for my beacon, and boom. Just like that, I had completed all my goals within 100 days. I killed the dragon, got full netherite gear, killed the wither, got a full beacon, and had a place I could call home. It wasn't complete yet, but it was a start. I still have many ideas for this place, which I've written down here, and I'll be working on them in the future. Here it was, day 100, the final day. I took this time to expand the path a bit, even adding some of the rooted dirt I'd found. Then I built a new shack for Teddy alongside the barn, and filled it with hay and water. With the day coming to an end, I climbed up into my tower, played the music disc I had got from the Woodland Mansion, and watched the sunset over everything I had created. After the sunset, I still had one thing left to do. I grabbed the soup that I had been saving since day 1 and finally ate it. Turns out it was my favorite flavor: poison. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. This took over 100 hours to put together, so if you did enjoy, please leave a like and give me some feedback so I can make the next video even better. Speaking of next videos, if you'd like to see this journey continued, be sure to subscribe for more.